doesn't end up playing on YouTube for about 20 seconds. So I have to give it a moment to make sure that the video actually comes up, because I have of course, the window for YouTube opened as well. So that's what I'm going to wait for here for a second before we get started. Is it going to come up? I hope everybody is doing well. It's been, and there I am. Okay, everything's good. Like I said, there's a little bit of a delay there. And if you've ever wondered why you maybe ask a question, it seems like it takes me a while to read it, it's because there is a delay. So there you go. And everybody's in here. Let me turn this from top chat to live chat, because we want to see everybody. And what's going on, Tracy and Concha, Layla, Derek, Shelly? Hope everybody is doing well. Getting in here a little early tonight just because that's what I do, kind of a pre-show type of thing. There's Heather. I know Heather has to be very pleased for what is right back there. And we'll be talking about that at 9 o'clock, being that most people will not tune in until the show actually starts. I will go back there and talk about that sign in a little bit. The maker of it, Heather, is already in. And Heather, I can assure you that I'll be talking about that in a moment. I was just, what's going on, Laura and Carrie and Sharon, and 2 Lauras tuning in at the same time. Okay, and Carol and Addicted. Okay, everybody's tuning in. Thank you. I had to wait to, I was going to tune in maybe a couple minutes earlier, but I was listening to my phone. I have a Spotify, and I have my JBL speaker, portable Bluetooth speaker that I take with me out to the disc golf course and elsewhere. I use it as my home stereo. I love it. And I was listening to a little Winger. Yes, I was. I was listening to Madeleine by Winger. For those of you who grew up in the 80s, you of course know what group that is. I was listening to that before the show started. Hello, Katina and Shannon and Cindy. It does look good back there, Heather. It does. But I was having a pretty busy day today. I finished Friday's episode today. Edited, did a little recording of the part before the interview. Edited, went through the audio of the entire interview. It's a long interview this week, about 2 hours long, actually over 2 hours long for the interview this week. And then I recorded my part afterwards. So the episode for Friday is done. Still working on an interview for next Friday, though I do have some people to email and call, so I'm not too worried at this point. Hello from Florida. Well, hello. You're saying hello to Florida, Addicted, because I'm in Florida too. James, Shelly, got 3 Lauras in here tonight. That's interesting. Okay. The logo is great. I want to talk a little bit. That's how I'm going to be starting the program, actually, Derek. Thank you for bringing that up. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Unfound logo, and then we're going to go back there. I'm going to get up from my chair for once and go back to the sign to show it to you. I'm going to take it off the wall and bring it up to you. Heather says I have a big echo. Well, let's see what I can do about that, Heather. Anybody else hearing an echo besides Heather? This echo thing bothers me. That's off. Don't know what it could be, Heather. All my speakers are off. Let me go over here for a moment and turn this down. Maybe do that. And is that any better? No, is that any better, Heather? Messing around with the audio. This is why we do it this way. Anybody else hearing an echo? Echo, you hear it. No echo here, James says. No echo here, Tanya. Yes, echo. Yes, echo. James says no echo. Not now. Okay. I don't know. It may depend on how you're listening to it. I know Cherie and I how long was it ago? 6 weeks ago, we kind of messed around with it a little bit. I have everything turned off here that could be. Not now. Okay. Not now. All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Good. Okay. We're going to start out talking about the Unfound logo a little bit. I want to give credit to the listener who haven't talked to that listener for a while, as a matter of fact. I should see what's up with her. But we're going to talk a little bit about the logo, and we're going to talk a little bit about the sign in the background here in a couple minutes when we actually get started. I'm just glad everybody's getting in here early. Jasmine, and who else is in here? Mark, what's going on? And so I finished the episode today, and I started writing the observations and what happened since Unfound's coverage sections for volume number 6. I think if I can work on one section per day, I'll have it all finished by Sunday, and then I can just put everything together and get volume 6 of season 1 out. I have to still design the cover, but that doesn't take very long. And I still have to talk to my person who is writing the intro, the foreword to that book too. In fact, I think I'm going to be talking to him tomorrow. So we still got some things to do, but volume 6 is very close. Probably within the next, hopefully a week and a half to 2 weeks, it'll be out. Carrie says, I think it's different pitches to your voice. Some do, some don't, but it is much better now. Okay, Tanya. Joyce, how you? Joyce Rivatuza, no echo, but you can barely hear me. Can barely hear me now. I don't know. This is so weird. So weird. It's like if I turn up the volume, the echo starts. I don't get it. Have to find a happy medium for both, I guess. James says last Friday's interview was outstanding. James, I appreciate that. Thank you. Cindy says can barely hear you now. I think we're gonna just have to deal with it the way it is, people. I don't know what to tell you regarding. I think that I really have to keep my head. You hear you better on your phone than your iPad. That's weird. Okay. Hey, AW. I think I'm just gonna have to keep my face pointed very straight forward in this. I don't know what else to say. It just pains me that YouTube has made it this way to do this, that I have to use Wirecast, because it is a little bit of pain in the butt. Okay, it's 9 o'clock. Oakley, what's going on? Thank you, Derek. That's so weird. Okay, let's get this show started. As you can see, as you maybe remember, everybody tuning in now at 9 o'clock, we're just talking around, just a little pre-show talking. You can see that the background has been changed. You can surely see that. And that is a sign, a poster. It's not a poster. It's actually a sign, and I'll get it here in a moment. Made by one of Unfound's listeners, Heather Dobbins, who is in the group actually watching tonight and commenting. I don't know how long it was ago, Heather, but not long ago, she said that she wanted to make a sign for me. Maybe 2 weeks ago, Heather, maybe 3 weeks ago, something like that. And she wanted to make a sign being for my new place, being this is where I am now, and it's been 2 weeks today. And I said, great. I wanted to compensate her in some way, but she insisted she wanted to do this for the program. And I said, okay, let's get it done. And I got it in the mail. I don't know, maybe was it yesterday? Days go by so fast. Was it Monday or Tuesday? But I got it. And now you see it hanging in the background there. And right before I moved, so over 2 weeks ago, Heather, thank you. And that is where it's hanging. The poster that I did have there was a collage that one of my closest friends, Shay, made for me. It is now on the wall over there. And of course, you can see that AC/DC is still in its spot. So I had an empty spot on the wall over this. This is the guest bedroom. I had an empty wall over here, so I put the Shay's collage up. So that's when you're looking across from the outside, that's what you see first. Then you walk in, you see AC/DC, and then right over there is the Unfound sign made by Heather. I want to talk a little bit about the logo. I did not necessarily design the logo, okay? Anybody who's been with the program since the beginning knows that the logo at the beginning was much different. And in fact, it was just some copy art that I found online because I really didn't know how long this program was going to go. I really didn't. I no idea. So, what's going on, D? Good to see you tonight. Thank you for your camel signs. I love them. Posted in the group. Thank you. But I didn't have an original logo. And because I really didn't know, once again, I didn't know how much work I wanted to put into a logo because I didn't know how long this program was going to be around. I really didn't. But once we got into 2017, fortunately, the program started to do well. And love the rock signs, James. Thank you. The show started to do well. However, some people did recognize that the logo for Unfound was not original, that it was just some copy art, and I did something real quick with it. Well, at that point, I was like, I got to do something because that's really cheesy. And so there is a listener, Stephanie Lowe, who I haven't talked to in a while. What's going on, Russell? I started talking. Stephanie Lowe said that she wanted to help design a logo. So I had some ideas, and she came up with a logo that you now identify with the program. Of course, if you've just come to Unfound within the last few months or even the last year and a half, maybe even 2 years, you don't even remember the old logo. But for people like from the beginning, who've been here from the beginning, maybe they do remember the old logo. But this is a logo. I say I've had the new logo that you now identify with the magnifying glass for about 2 years, maybe not quite 2 years. And it's been really good. It's been really, really good. I love it. I absolutely love it. Stephanie did a fantastic job on that. But that's how the logo got started. We just had some ideas, but I did not necessarily get down and draw it out. I can't draw really worth a crap. And really, it's a miracle that I can even design the covers for the books, truthfully. But Stephanie put some nice work into that. And now that is the Unfound logo that you see, of course, everywhere. It is now everywhere. On the books, on Spotify, on Podomatic, everywhere else. So there's that. So that logo, now let me go get the sign that Heather designed. I'm going to stand up for a second. Got it. This will give you an idea how big it is. It's what is this, Heather? 2 feet by 1 foot, right? 24 inches across, and 12 inches high. So here you go. And it is real painted. It's on wood. I mean, it's really, really, really nice. I mean, really nice. And Heather, I just want to thank you for this. What's going on, Russell? From Seattle. And this is the sign that she made. Thank you, Carol. And I mean, it's very high quality, and it got a couple different kind of ways I could hang into the back. But over there, I'm just using, as you can see, one hook on the wall, and that's where it's going to permanently stay. So there you can go. You can see how shiny it is. I've always loved the funny thing is I'm not the biggest fan of the color red, but when you combine red and black and everything, it somehow works. I don't know what it is. And because I'm not a huge fan of like red cards and everything, but with the logo and the black and the silver of the spyglass, the magnifying glass, and the red background, of course, which we use for all the shirts, as you can see, it really works, and I think it really stands out. And I just want to thank Heather. You're very welcome for her to do this. Obviously, she is very, very talented. I think she does this for a living, so I would suggest anybody who needs any signs or anything. I know she told me she was working on artwork for an 18-wheeler around the time that she was working on this. If you need any work done, and she's not paying me to do this, I'm just doing this for my own free will. If you need any sign work done and everything, you can see the quality that she puts out. You should look her up. You can find her in the discussion group, and of course she is in the group here tonight for the YouTube show. So there you go. Looks great. Love it. And I'm going to go hang it back up on the wall now. But I thought I needed to bring it over here just so you could see how big it was, because I sent the picture to my dad, and there was no perspective. And he was like, well, how big is it? I can't really tell. So there you go. So let me see if I can put this on the wall. Straight. Okay. That looks good. Okay. All right. So there you go. And just Dino, they're in Shopify. We can probably, Dino, I'm sure we can work something out. Contact me through email afterwards. I'm sure we can work a shirt deal out for you. It does look great. Thank you, Vicky. Yeah, that's thanks to Heather. I know who I'm calling when I need a sign made. Exactly, Carrie. Yes. Yes. So there you go. And so that's where it's going to be. From now on, when we do the program, that's where that sign is going to be. And I think it's one more great piece of artwork that Unfound has to go along with the logo itself, of course, the books, the shirts, and everything else. So I'm really excited about that. Okay. Kind of related to that, all of the posters are up in my place except for one. I haven't ordered it yet. I'm going to get a disc golf poster. I haven't found one yet, but all of my rock posters and everything are now set up around my new place. Very excited about that. Gives it a very homey Ed feel to it. When I walk in here, I'm like, oh yeah, this is my place. Much more than my last place where I didn't have a lot of decorations. Justina, okay, we'll work it out afterwards. Thank you. Whitney, nobody wants to, who wants to play a game? I don't even know what that means, Whitney. I hope you aren't going to the wrong place, Whitney, because I will block you. Cherie's not here tonight, so I have the wrench. So please don't, in fact, we're not even going to take any chances. We're not even going to take any chances with that. So there you go. That was, okay, there you go. So there's that. All the posters are up. I'm excited about that. Place is working out really well. Let's now move to a little more business than what we do here. The Kelly Sims poll from last Friday, a large majority of you picked the choice that Lester Newton is probably most responsible for Kelly's disappearance. Once again, as I say often, I don't think that would be the choice that I would have picked. In fact, if you are a Patreon member, even if just at $2 a month, you get to read the blog there. You know what I put forth there. And just to give you a slight feel for that, I kind of put it on KC. I'm suspicious of KC, but it seems a large majority of you, if we're going to go by the poll in the group, Lester Newton is your favorite choice. Of course, some of the other people got picked as well, but Lester got a vast majority of the picks. During the think tank on Sunday nights, we did not come to a consensus. Of course, it was Mother's Day. We didn't have as many people in there as we usually do. but we did not have come to a consensus. It was all over the map. Some people thought Lester. A couple people agreed with me. Some people believe it could have been a stranger, etc. Oh, there's Cherie. Cherie, I've already had to block somebody. I'm glad you're here. So, there you go. But thanks, Cherie, for tuning in. I know Cherie is, I don't know if she wants me to say, but Cherie is on a little bit of a vacation right now. So, I'm glad she's tuning in tonight to wield the wrench for anybody that gets out of line. So, you do agree with me, Layla. Okay. Thank you. And she made it. Yes, Derek, she did make it. Cherie, I have to tell you, works really hard for the program. So I appreciate, I know she's in a place where she's spending some good times. And thanks for tuning in, Cherie. Thanks for getting in here tonight. But the Kelly Sims poll, Lester's seen as the most likely suspect. Once again, I'm leaning more toward KC. But if we knew what actually happened, we could just go solve it right now. Last Thursday, so the day after last week's show, the next day after I went to my personal trainer, I mailed out a bunch of Volume 5s from Season 1. The people who got them first were the guests for those episodes. Okay, so mothers and other people who were the guests, they get their books first. In addition, I mailed printed copies, signed, of course, to all of the $20 a month Patreon supporters. So the next round of people will be the transcribers that assisted for Volume 5. They will be getting their volumes next, and hope to be able to mail those out within the next few days. So that's so they've got theirs out. In fact, I think a few of them, I know Yvonne Ludwig posted hers. I think Wanda Tosh, mother of Ronnie Russell, posted a picture of hers. I do that. Of course, they get theirs for free. I pay for the shipping and everything else. And I try to get it out to them as quickly as possible. And of course, I write a personal note in each of them. All right, so that would not be possible without the Patreon support, PayPal support that many of you have shown Unfound. And of course, I try to mention all of you when I do the episodes when they come out every Friday. All right, Whitney's in the house. All right, Whitney, we got a good Whitney in here. We had a trouble with another Whitney earlier, just so you know, Whitney. So you got to represent the Whitneys tonight. Thank you. Thanks, Justino. You're welcome, Derek. So that's what I've had going on. Obviously, a lot going on. Doing episodes, getting the books out, getting my place in order. So I've been a very busy guy, and I have had the opportunity to get out and disc golf a little bit, which I've been excited about that. By the way, if anybody has any questions that you'd like for me to answer, I just have a couple questions that I've gotten before the show started. So please, if you have any questions about anything, even if it doesn't have to do, we don't have a lot of heavy topics tonight, frankly. So if you have anything that you think we can, ideas and topics and answers that we can throw around, you let me know. Also, regarding anything having to do with the books, once again, following through on my dedication to try to get this done and stuff done as quickly as possible. Transcribers for volumes 5 and 6 also got paid this past weekend. Okay, so as transcribers for the most recent round of transcribers, which is going to be going on for a while, the transcribers get printed copies of all of the books. They get they're getting paid $50 per transcription, okay? And they also get automatic access to all of the blogs that I write at Patreon, okay? That's how they are being compensated for their very hard work. And they already have access to the blogs. Volumes 5 and 6 have already gotten paid. We just have to work on the shipping of the books. And of course, once we get to Volume 1 of Season 2, then those transcribers then will also get books and get paid and everything else. So Just have to manage it. I have a system. It seems to be working so far. Russell loves disc golf. Russell, that's awesome to hear. If you're ever in Florida, Russell, we should go disc golf sometime. That would be fun. Melanie, there's a good question. Have I ever been a private investigator? No, I have not. I've actually thrown around the idea of maybe getting my license to be a private investigator, but I would only do that, Melanie, if I thought that it was going to make things easier to do. And I'm not sure that's the case right now. I'm not going to I already have enough stuff to do, really. So I will do it if I think it's going to help the program, if it's worth putting in the time and the money and everything else, I will consider it. But I don't have any plans to do it right away. But no, I have no law enforcement connections or experience, anything like that. I'm really just a reporter, really. I have heard of the Springfield 3, Laura, and Emily and I have explored that, but we've not got anything concrete right now. This is once again one of those cases where it's gotten so much coverage so far that if they were to contact us, of course, we'd talk to them, but I would not say that we are working very hard to contact them, okay? Because Emily is contacting a lot of people, but I don't think that is higher on her list or on my list at this time, but I'm very familiar with the case, of course. Good for you, Russell. Going to get licensed. Good for you. Good for you. I think it's a pretty good package, Justino, that these people want to do these transcriptions. It helps me out so much. It's not easy. Transcribing is not easy, especially if people haven't done it before, but they do. Every transcription that I've gotten so far has been very good. I want to be honest with you. Very good. Have I ever used VDoc Society for some of your cases? I'm going to say right off the top of my head, James, that I'm not familiar with that. So the answer would be no. You're more than welcome to explain to me what that society is. I'd love to know, but no, I've not. Thank you, Oakley. Heather, you got your book yesterday. Love it. So you sent me a sign and I sent you a book. They kind of like two ships passing in the night, Heather. I guess that's how that happened. LaFord, 2 books I'm going to pick up, yours and Howard's. Can't wait. Thank you, LaFord. Laura, I'm a late bloomer to the Unfound family. How'd you get involved in True Crime Podcast? Do you work outside of doing this? How I got involved, probably Laura. You probably should go back and listen to the Q&A episode that I put out about 3 weeks ago. That question is answered. I go fairly deep into that question there. I would recommend that. However, the second part, do you work outside of this? No, I don't. This is all I do. 24/7 on Unfound, on weekends, holidays, everything else. Katina, I have to ask, what is disc golf? I've never heard of it before. You're killing me, Katina. I would recommend that once this show is over tonight, Katina, that you do a search for disc golf on YouTube, and it's going to tell you everything you ever needed to know about this fantastic sport. Fantastic sport. I really don't want to get into it now because it's a little too hard to explain. It's like ball golf, but you use specialized frisbees instead of golf balls, and you throw the discs instead of hitting a ball. It's easy to learn. There's a lot of disc golf courses out there in public parks. Very cheap to play. Of course, you can play for free. You just have to buy the discs. Jasmine, what do you think is the percentage of people who are never filed as missing or have missing persons never filed? You know, Jasmine, that's a really good question. I have to admit that I've thought about it a little bit, but not very much. I'm guessing the percentage is probably fairly high, and in fact, it seems to me, some of these cases where remains are found after a long time or something, it does seem to me that a certain percentage of those are people who were never listed as being missing. So my perception is that it helps when reports are found or filed so that people can be found easier. I think that helps the process when actually a report is found or filed. Found and filed. I think the percentage is considerable. I don't know how high it is, though, Jasmine. It's certainly more than 1%, and it's probably less than 50%. But I do think that if you want a missing persons case solved, you have to file a report. No matter how we think the police handle the investigation and what they do and what they don't do, a report has to be filed. But you're right. Probably a lot of people don't. And in fact, what was that case? I forget her name now. That woman who lived under an assumed name for so long, and of course she ended up living in Texas and committed suicide. And it wasn't until after her husband found out that she had a fake ID and all of that. She was a woman. There was never a missing persons report filed. I think if there had been one filed and she had ended up on the Charlie Project or something, her real identity would have been discovered a long time ago. That's just as an example. Yes, Katina, I'm sorry I don't want to go into it more than that about disc golf, Katina, but I'm telling you, if you were to do a search after we're done here on disc golf on YouTube, you'll find out a lot of great videos and everything else. You live by a disc golf course, you got to check it out, D. Laura, I've noticed you don't put a lot of stock in the Disappeared show. Why is that? Hollywood and Edding. Why is that? Well, from personal experience, Laura. And that was something that I should have probably talked about in the Q&A episode. Thank you for bringing that up, Laura. The problem is my personal experience is they make mistakes. I can understand them leaving some things out because they're, the show can only it's 60 minutes, but with commercials, it's only 43 minutes. You take the commercials out. I understand they're not going to be able to go into it as deep as we do in Unfound. I understand that. What I don't understand are the mistakes. And they make a lot of them. They interview the wrong people. April Pitzer's episode, if you watch that one, two of the guys they interview that they call friends of April's are actually suspects in her disappearance. So that's the main problem. Secondary to that is the reenactments and those things. I think that they start messing with people's minds. People start thinking things happened that didn't. Okay? And we certainly don't need that. So it's primarily, Laura, that I just find out once I get into a case that they covered, that they make a lot of mistakes. Then, yes, there is some editing issues and things, but it's mainly you can't make mistakes. You can do a lot of other things. Can't make mistakes. Miranda, I just read an article today about a boy from the South somewhere who was just identified by familiar DNA and then his dad was arrested. I'm sure that's going to start happening a lot more, Miranda. Melanie, why is it legal for adults to go missing? Well, that kind of gets into the way, I guess, at least in Western civilization. I wouldn't say that this is the situation for the entire world, but in countries where they recognize human rights and freedom and self-determination and being able to choose and things like that, that's why it's legal. Now, if we're just going to go to the other extreme and say North Korea, somebody goes missing, they start thinking the person, just trying to get away to South Korea. They start thinking this, they start thinking that. In the United States and many, many other countries of the world where rights, people are known to have rights, right, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to assemble and everything, adults can make that choice. Okay. Good question, Laura. Les, thank you, LaFord, for saying that. Adults have the right to travel about and get new starts. That's true. And some places in the world, that's not allowed. Laura, gotcha. Thank you. That's why I'm so hooked on your show, because you take as long or as short as the interview goes. We do. And that's why this week we're going over 2 hours with this interview. Carol says, I think the Disappeared sometimes over dramatizes slightly to make the shows more interesting. Well, that's true, Carol. I understand it's on TV. I get that. And I understand there has to be a certain entertainment, quote unquote, element to it. But you can't make mistakes. Okay? This isn't like, when you go to see a movie and it says it's based on real events. Well, these cases, they're serious. You shouldn't be exaggerating and things like that. You can get away with it when people are going to see a fiction movie that is based on true events. They understand that things are going to be skewed a certain way to add to the drama. You can't do that on a program like Disappeared, where people take whatever you say as being the truth. There's a difference. James, what's your opinion on cops using ancestry.com to solve cases? James, my opinion is that some defense attorney one of these days is going to have a successful argument against it, and I would not, if I live to be 90, that's going to happen, that there will be some case, defense attorney will successfully get a case very high up in a state or federal court regarding that. I have no doubt in my mind. No doubt in my mind. Now, how is it going to go? I don't know, but I think, there has to be some defense attorney looking at all this DNA stuff that's solving these cases and thinking, man, there just seems to be something weird about all of this. And that's all it really takes. So my opinion is that it's going to get challenged. And my opinion is that somebody who challenges it just might be successful. Laura, how did you come up with the name Unfound? I just knew I wanted something that was just one word. I didn't want to get into 2 words or 3 words or 4 words or 10 words or something like that. I just wanted something, boom, right there. Of course, that would be easy for a logo and everything else. I fooled around with some different combinations and things, and that just seemed to work. I didn't have any other names. I messed around with some other names, but once I decided I was going to do the program, it wasn't like the show started out at one name and then it switched to another. I knew that I didn't want to put podcast in the title or anything else, because I think that limits you when it comes to getting attention for, because I don't, as you notice, I rarely call Unfound a podcast. I call it a program because people listen to it or watch it on YouTube in a variety of different venues. I don't even remember the other names I came up with, Laura. I'm sure in one of my notebooks or in some file I probably had something. Cannot tell you right what they were at the time. Before you settled. No, I didn't. It was like I wasn't going to do the program until I came up with a name. That's what you think too regarding challenging it. It just seems a little too, I don't know. Great. It's been great. Catching a lot of killers out there. But we realize that over the course, at least my country, the United States, we now realize that there was a way we used to catch criminals that maybe wasn't legal. For example, reading the Miranda rights. That just started in the 1960s in the United States. Okay? So we realize that sometimes things that law enforcement is doing that is legal is sometimes then changed by court cases. I think that may be the case with Familia DNA and using Ancestry.com and all these other places that collect DNA. Derek says there was a case in the Philly area where a couple... I am familiar with that case, Derek. I would love to cover it. I am familiar with it, although I would not say that I'm any more familiar with it than any of you. I've seen... That was a Disappeared episode. I've watched that. I've read a lot about it. I even know that within the last few months, they said that They think it might have been a contract killing or something like that. It's a case I would love to cover. However, I don't believe that, I know I haven't, I don't believe that Emily has ever talked to anybody in their family yet. But that's a case I would like to cover. Thank you for bringing that up, Derek. That's a good one. That is a case that is certainly a stumper. LaFord, I agree with you on the ancestry opinion, but in the meantime, I'm so glad they're closing some of these cold cases where these bad guys think they got away with murder, literally. Yeah, and that's going to be the tough part if it does get challenged. How do you balance crimes getting solved against people's personal rights? And as I've stated before, although not recently, I think the way to challenge that is to say that our DNA is something that's a part of us. And, you know, they're using it because we leave DNA places where we go. Well, what are we supposed to do? Not go anywhere? And I think that that's the way some defense attorney is going to find a way in, I think. AW says, we have silver alerts too, includes elderly or age adults who is challenged in some way and cannot take care of themselves. That goes back to the question about, should it be legal for adults just to disappear? Hey, Bree, what's going on? You're excused. Melanie's Crime Con fun. I have no idea. I've never been there, Melanie, and that's one of those Q&A questions. I would suggest you go to the Q&A episode I did about 3 weeks ago. I actually talk about CrimeCon there. What do I think about the case with Susan Cox? Is that Susan Powell, otherwise known as Susan Powell? I think that her husband killed her, and I think we're pretty sure of it then that he then took his kids and killed them in that fire. So, you know, will they ever find her? I have no idea. Pamela, is it hard to start a program like Unfound? A lot of work and time. Is it hard to start? No. Is it hard to be successful? I would say yes. Doing this program, and I'm not going to speak for other podcasters, but it's a lot of work, and it is not easy. It's not easy. And does it take a lot of work and time? As much work and time as you want to put into it, Pamela. I like working on Unfound, so I do put a lot of work and time into it. But it's not easy. Joyce, Susan Cox was married to a monster. Yes, she was, Joyce. I agree. Bree, have you ever heard of the Relisha Rudd case happened in DC? I'm not familiar with that. So let me go down here and ask a couple questions. Laura, who I know is in here tonight, asked me a good question. How long does it take to research a case? I would not say that I do what. It depends. I would not say that. I mean, maybe this is going to be here's what I do. When I interview people, or when I talk to people originally, what I will do is I will get permission to record the conversation on my phone, because I have to do that legally. Then I will listen to the conversation again, and I will take notes on it. From there, I will then kind of judge, what do I have to look into regarding this? If some names pop up, if some locations pop up, if some directions pop up, any other possibly connected, that's when I determine what amount of work do I need to do to better understand this disappearance. And of course, I'll obviously go back to the guest, a future guest, and talk to them about it as well. So, Laura, it just depends. In a case like Thomas Brown, if we want to bring up the most obvious case, that was quite a bit. All right? Whereas in some others, not as much. It just depends what kind of disappearance it is, how long ago it was, what are the circumstances, are there a lot of suspects, are there no suspects? So it just depends, but I think when I use the word research, it's a lot different than when a lot of other hosts use that word. What they're talking about is accumulating the information that is on the internet. What I'm talking about is trying to look into what a future guest tells me. Okay, trying to make sure that what they're saying is correct. And is there something else that needs to be, is there somebody else that needs to be talked to or something like that? It just depends on from case to case. If your grandfather was a serial killer, could you still get into law enforcement? I believe so. My daughter-in-law's grandfather was the Hillside Strangler and wants to be a detective. I don't see anything wrong with it. I do not believe that crime and stuff like that is genetic. I think that your daughter-in-law should be entitled to be a detective just as much as anybody else, Melanie. Okay. So I hope that answers the question, Laura. I know you're in here, but it just depends. And when you say research, what I do to put an episode together is different than what a lot of other hosts do, mainly because I do interviews and most of the others don't. Okay. And even to get more specific, even though I know, for example, like Marissa at the Vanish, she does interviews. Well, my interviews are different in that when you hear an interview, that is how the conversation went. Whereas what she does, I believe, is she talks to the guest and then later she splices in the questions. Okay. As you know, I don't do that. When you listen to it, you know that myself and my guests are having a real conversation because we speak over each other sometimes and things like that. So even that, it makes my experience in hosting a program different than everybody else's. And Dee asked me, who I know Dee is in here, and if you don't know, Dee is the person who always posts the camel on Wednesdays, which is, I guess, become kind of a Wednesday thing now, which I think is really, really neat. Are all of Unfound's cases solvable, and why? They are all solvable. Every crime that has ever been committed is solvable. However, I think that I said in the Q&A episode from 3 weeks ago that unfortunately that I think if I live to be 90 years old, there will still be cases that I've covered on Unfound, even to just to this point, that will not be solved by the time I die 42 years from now. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It sucks. But I think that's a reality. I think that if I were to just stop you Unfound now at 130 cases covered, I am sure that quite a few of those 130 cases will not be solved 42 years from now. I don't know what to tell you. Are they all solvable? Yes, conceivably. But realistically, probably not. I've not heard of that case, Bree. 1997 in Florida. Sabrina Eisenberg, not familiar with it. Anything else? Pamela says, I like the camel. I like the camel too. I like the Van LaForge. I didn't know that was how her podcast came together. I think it is LaForge. I've never talked to Marissa, but I just know the times that I've listened to it. If you listen to it in the interviews, you can tell that the interviews she does are different from mine, because what she'll do is she'll let the guest talk for a while and then she'll talk for a while. And then she'll say, and then she said this, and then the guest will talk for a while and then she'll talk for a while again. And the way you do that is really what happened is that there was a conversation that she had with the guest. She recorded it and then spliced in her comments and questions and everything afterwards. I don't do that. Just another way of getting it all done. Heather says she likes the camel too. I never know what day it is. Okay. Hey guys, camera girl. There's yes, D. You are. She's sticking her hand up. How do I choose the cases, Laura? I do not choose the cases. The cases choose us. People choose to be on the program. Okay. As you know, we do not cover cases unless We have interviews for those cases, except for the exception of Stephen Kocher's, which was only my personal experience with the case. So it's not like we choose people to be on the program. We approach them. Emily approaches them. I approach them. Cherie approaches them. Other people approach them. And they find out about Unfound. And then they agree to do an interview for the program. Okay? Sometimes they approach us. We approach them. Do they have a website? Do they have a Facebook page? Etc. But in the end, they choose to be on the program. Okay? So I wanted to talk about something that I posted in the group, but I think that I need to talk about it a little bit more, not just because it was an unfound case, but because I think that we can learn something from it. Okay, and I posted this in the group, and it's in the announcements section in the group. But it has to do with the Juanita Nelson case, because I know that when this happened, I did not talk about it on the show. I did not talk about it in the update episode. My fault, because I forgot. And so I want to do it now because I want to get it on the record for a video. Yeah, you notice sound changes during vanished interviews. Well, that's why, LaFord. I have nothing against it. It's just the different way she does it and the way I do it. That's why it sounds different. If you don't know, not long after Juanita Nelson's episode came out in late January, and if you remember going back to that episode, of course, her boyfriend, Juanita's boyfriend his name was Graham. And a few years after she disappeared, he went to jail for allegedly abusing and committing violence against another young woman. And we talked about it during the episode. I talked about it with Katie Nelson, who is Juanita Nelson's sister. Well, what happened shortly after the episode came out, the woman, of course, she's a grown woman now. It's been 18 years or something like that. The woman that Graham went to jail for, the victim in that case, contacted me. I'm not going to give out her name. She contacted me, and I know for sure that is her. And I want to read what she wrote to me, and we're going to talk a little bit about this because in the episode we talked about how this woman had written something in her journal about Juanita and how she had to run and get away, and this is everything that Katie said. However, here's what the victim herself told me when she wrote to me, and I'm going to be looking off to my left so I can read this. I just listened. She wrote this to me on Facebook, on Messenger. I just listened to the podcast about Juanita. It is a very sad story, and a lot of information was new to me. But I'm not sure how much of it is true or what information is correct. I feel this way because the information regarding what happened between Graham and I is simply not true or extremely exaggerated. I feel it is important for you to know that I was never held hostage by him for 4 days, was never shared with his friends, did not escape out a window, and my diary never said anything about Juanita. The whole diary entry was completely made up by the police. These are just a few of the facts that are misleading. The police made up a lot of things to fit their agenda. I protested and I protested and dropped away from the case. Okay, so what she means by there at the end is, even though she was a victim of Graham's, to some extent, she did not take part in the prosecution for his crime. And what she is saying is that things that were said to try to get Graham, I think, to admit to what he did to this young woman, they were lies created. The police created lies to try to get him to confess. And unfortunately, those lies have now made it out into the public to the point where Katie, Juanita Nelson's sister, was telling me some of those things during our interview for that episode. And I think that I have a responsibility to tell you this. Okay? And, this is one of those things where I don't know how else I could have checked into this. Maybe, unfortunately, although I knew this woman existed, I don't think that I knew she was on Facebook. I don't know if I knew how I could ever contact her, but I feel the obligation to tell you about this. And I'm wondering now that she is saying this, and is she saying, is she telling the truth? I'm going to guess she is. I'm wondering now of course, I'm sure all of you have listened to the Juanita Nelson episode. I'm wondering if, knowing that a lot of the things that were said about Graham regarding this particular case are not true, or allegedly not true, I'm wondering if it then changes your ideas about what actually happened to Juanita Nelson herself. But I think the other point is that this just also shows you that it's not just suspects and people who distort facts. The police do as well. Sometimes they do it. Of course, we all have all the conversations we want to have about crooked cops and people like that. But sometimes lies get out, lies that are used to try to get a person to confess, and then they become part of the lexicon, and then they become part of history and become facts. And it sounds to me like that's what has happened in this particular case. And it very well may be, although Graham may be a bad guy, he's not as bad as we all thought. I mean, he still went to jail, etc. But she is saying that he didn't hold her against his will. He didn't pass her around and everything else. So I'm just wondering now, maybe if you're going to go back and listen to that Juanita Nelson episode, could it change your mind? D. Willett, I was asked if there was any way her dad did something to her, right? And of course, I had my conversation with Juanita Nelson's father, and I kind of told you how that went. Katie, I'm curious if there was any police report between her and Graham. Well, there must have been something, Carrie, for the case even to get started for them to prosecute Graham. I have to admit, I wrote this woman back after she wrote me. She never got back to me again. Maybe I should give it another shot. But, so I don't know, I have not had a deep conversation with her about any of this. Okay? She wrote me this. She found me. She wrote me this. I responded to it. She never returned anything. So, no. Please cover my friend's case, Brian Butler, Half Moon Bay, California. Dragonfly, I'm not familiar with that case. You're more than welcome to send any information regarding it to unfoundpodcast@gmail.com. Dee says, I feel like her dad said something to her regarding Juanita. Derek, but how did Katie know that information? I mean, my God, why was Kaylee lying to you about Graham's victim? Well, I think the reason Katie knew that is because the police told her that. And that's the only, Derek, I think that's the only way she could have gotten that information. So I don't think that Katie was lying to me, okay? I have other problems with that interview and what Katie said about it afterwards. But I don't believe she was lying to me. I believe she was just quoting what the police told her. And it seems now that all these years later, things that the police used to try to get information from Graham, and of course, we know that the police are allowed to lie to get information from people. Those lies that they said to Graham have now become fact. And I think that Katie believes that they are fact. Maybe she doesn't now because I know she knows about this message because I told her about it. Maybe she doesn't now, but at the time we did the interview, she did. But that just shows you how things can get distorted over time. I do not believe that Katie was lying to me. I believe that she was just saying what the police told her. And, why would you automatically think that they'd be lying? It may be the cops that even told her about this stuff recently think it's true. But obviously the victim would know more than anybody else if it was true. and she's saying some of those things aren't true. And I'm more inclined to believe the victim than I am the police, because I realize that police will lie to get confessions from people like Graham. Yeah, Debbie, you got to listen. Yeah, now that you know that, you got to listen to Juanita's case. So now you can maybe listen to it in that context. Carrie, if she refused to sign the complaint, she wouldn't be helping with prosecution. Once again, Carrie, I've not had a deep conversation with her, so I don't. I know that what you're stating is a fact. I just don't know what exactly went down. I don't know. Yes, we only do missing persons cases. But I was going to talk about this last week, but we ran out of time. I wanted to make sure that we got it in this week. So, there you go. So some of you may now want to go back and listen to the Juanita Nelson case again, or at least go to that part of the interview where we talked about Graham's crime after, because he did, whatever the case, whatever this woman is saying, Graham did spend time in jail. That is a fact. So there's that. One more thing that I want to talk about is a newsletter. Of course, it's the middle of the month. I'm going to be working on the newsletter tomorrow. So you can look forward to getting it maybe tomorrow night, maybe Friday. But if you've gotten previous newsletters, then you're on the list. If you haven't gotten previous newsletters, then you're not on the list. So you can contact me at unfoundpodcast@gmail.com, and I will get you on the list. Just kind of gives a little behind the scenes look. You're going to read a lot of things I talk about here, maybe some things that I don't talk about there. And once in a while, I do go on a rant. So if you like that kind of thing, maybe you should get signed up for the newsletter. I'm curious to what the police department report states too, Carrie, but maybe I should put that on my list of things to do to try to get in contact with this woman again and have a more complete conversation with her. I'll put that on the list, Carrie. Yeah, D. Yeah, she got mad at you when you asked. Yeah, I know, D. I know. I'm just not going to get into that now. I know exactly what you're talking about. How do I get the newsletter? You get the newsletter. You got it. Okay. How do I get the newsletter? Got it. Thank you. Okay. You just have to email me with your email address, and I'll get you on the list for this month. So, I want to talk about one thing that was in the news, and then we're going to move on to the case for this week because I have to make a phone call very quickly after the show's over tonight. I want to talk about, it seems the disappearance of Heather Lacey has been solved. It's a Florida case. She was found in a freezer at a scrapyard. This just happened recently. What happened was that it seems this freezer was in some apartment for a while. Then it got wheeled out and it got taken to a scrapyard. They were going to tear it apart, turn it into scrap metal. They open it up, and what do you know? This missing woman, Heather Lacey, was in it. And in reading the story, Heather Lacey does remind me of a lot of the kind of young women that we cover on Unfound. Women who got mixed up in women who have gotten mixed up in drugs and prostitution, and other things, messing around with hanging out with the wrong type of men. That's who Heather Lacey was, unfortunately. And she just disappeared like that. But I think what this shows that she was found in a freezer 5.5 years later. She disappeared in November 2013. This just shows you how unpredictable these cases can be. Now, of course, some of the young women that we've covered on Unfound that reminds me of Heather is like Jamie Bowen, Shanna Boydo, Layla Faulkner. Of course, that's a very recent case. Some of these young women, and I could go on and on and on. But it just shows you that who could have known that she would be found in a freezer 5.5 years later. And not only that, but she was last seen in Hollywood, Florida. But the freezer where it was and had been sitting was in Deerfield Beach, Florida, which is an hour away. She was last seen in Hollywood, Florida, but her body was found in a freezer in Deerfield Beach, Florida. When you hear a case like this, when one of these things kind of gets solved, we don't know how she died or anything, but you just realize how tough these cases involving drugs and things like that are so hard, because anything is possible. Anything is possible. I keep saying that about those types of cases. Anything is possible. And Heather Lacey's, I think her page is still up on Charlie Project. I don't think Megan has got, because once a person is found, of course, she takes that page off her site. I think it's still up there, but you'll go to Heather Lacey's page on there and you'll see there's not a lot of information. And I don't think you'd ever guess that she would be found in a freezer dead, but she was. So, yeah, the apartment was found and belonged to a deceased man, right, Debbie? That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. And once again, it just shows you that we do the best we can do with the information that we are given in these types of cases. Even so, I'm pretty convinced that in many of them, I'm sure we're missing things. I'm sure we are. And it sucks. It sucks. Let's put it this way. Had I covered Heather Lacey's disappearance in the last 2.5 years, do you think it would have ever come up that we would have said, you know what, I think there's a possibility that she might have been stuck in a freezer? I'd be very surprised. I would have been very surprised if that came up in covering that case. But now we know that's a fact. I just wanted to bring that up to you because it just shows you, I want you to remember that the next time we cover a disappearance involving a young woman involved in drugs and things like that. Okay, just to remind you that it's very possible that the woman will end up being found and it'll be in some situation we never could have guessed. So there you go. All right, let's go to the case for this Friday. It is the disappearance of Jack Hemby. He disappeared from Rio Doce Downs, New Mexico on, well, the date in this case is up for speculation. The last date that he used his phone was November 9th, 2011. However, when he was finally discovered to be missing, the date came out that maybe November 15th is actually the day that he had been missing. So already we know there are issues with this case. But the title of this episode is called State of the Affair. And the reason it is called that is because Jack Hemby was cheating on his wife for 20 years. He disappeared in 2011. He had been married to his wife since the late 80s, and he was cheating on his wife. What his daughter is the guest. She admits it. It wasn't her mother that he was cheating on. Her mother had been married to him back in the 70s. But he was married to a woman named Donna. They got married in the late 80s. And he started cheating on her with a woman named Mary in the early 90s. And had been with this woman up until he disappeared. Even though, allegedly, his wife never knew about it. He was spending a lot of time away from home. He would only, you'll have to hear it to believe it. Okay, you just will. Like I said, the guest is Jack's daughter, Shelley Webb, who is in the group. You will see her there. And so the reason this episode is called, of course, we know what an affair is. It's, one way to call somebody that's cheating, you're having an affair with somebody. But we're also going to analyze what exactly was what kind of condition was this affair in at the time Jack disappeared. Derek says, my God, that's a long time to be having an affair. It is. And you're going to have to judge that when you're listening to this. It's like I said, it's a 2-hour interview, and I'll have you know that Jack's daughter, Shelly, is very, very honest about her father and his relationships with women, relationships with his wife, Donna, at the time, a relationship with her mother going back to the 1970s. She's very, very transparent regarding that. Now, the story, if you want to believe that the Mistress Mary, is that she had come home from work. They had an argument. He got ticked off. He took off, never came back. And his car was eventually found at a local casino, and it had sat there for a long time before it was ever discovered. Now, obviously, a lot of people are going to be suspicious. Well, that's a very convenient story, Mary. Well, you're going to have to judge that for yourself. The problem is that there were some other things going on in the area with Jack, with other people, that could have instigated this disappearance. Okay? So that is the case for this Friday. The disappearance of Jack Hemby. We're calling it State of the Affair. His last cell phone use was November 9th, 2011, and I've had an opportunity to look at the records. In fact, between myself, Cherie, Emily, and Eric, we were able to establish some of these phone numbers that didn't have any names connected to them. When she sent me the records, we were able to kind of fill in the blanks on some of the calls that Jack had made or had received in the days leading up to his disappearance. So I was very happy that we could do that for her. But that's from Rio dos Downs, New Mexico. I think this is our second New Mexico disappearance. I think the first one was Leah Peoples. And he was a guy who was cheating on his wife for 20 years. Her name was Donna. She claims that after his disappearance, she had no idea that he had been with another woman this whole time. And she said it was a shock to her. And he was cheating on his wife for 20 years. In fact, he might have been cheating with some other women as well. And are we going to determine that this affair that he was having is an element of a disappearance, or was it something else that brought about this disappearance? So that's what we got going on this Friday. It's an episode that's about 2 hours and 15 minutes long, something like that, because we really do get into the intricacies of the relationship that Jack was having and everything that was going on in his life. So that's all I have for you tonight. What did we do? I showed you the new picture on the wall, sign on the wall that will be here from now on. I told you a little bit how the Unfound logo even got started. Tanya says, geez, I can't imagine finding that out. Well, you're totally true, Tanya. I agree with you. I agree with you. So we talked about the logo. We talked about Heather Dobbins made the sign. Stephanie Lowe is the one who designed the logo. All the posters are up. Pretty much got everything now in its place in my new apartment here. Told you about the Kelly Sims poll. I talked about books going out to guests and certain Patreon people. Talked about payments to all the transcribers for volumes 5 and 6. And once I get to season 2, volume 1, those people, transcribers, will be getting paid too. We've got a newsletter coming out within the next couple days. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the Juanita Nelson case, specifically the victim, Graham's victim from the early 2000s who contacted me. We never did have a discussion, and I want to admit I got that email message a few months ago. I should have talked about it back then. I talked about Heather Lacey being found in a freezer, which solves a disappearance case here in Florida. It just shows you how unpredictable these cases can be. And then I took some questions from Laura and Dee, and a bunch of you people had some really good questions tonight. And then finally we previewed this Friday's episode, the disappearance of Jack Hemby from Rio dos Downs, New Mexico. It's called State of the Affair. His last cell phone use was November 9th, 2011. Yes, Blaze, it does sound like a doozy. Yes. Devi, I'm glad that you caught the live show too. Thank you for making time. Your birthday's coming up, Derek. Happy birthday to you. I hope you have a great one. Really do. Layla, there you go. A&W can buy a t-shirt at myshopify.com. In fact, I should post that link for anybody that's interested in the group and on the page. A&W, thank you for reminding me to do that. Congratulations on the new job, Layla. There you go. I'm going to go. Thank you all for tuning in tonight. If you got in late, of course, as soon as this is over, you will be able to play it from the beginning on YouTube, and you can catch everything else. Good night, everyone. I deeply appreciate you tuning in. Now, I have a call to make on a case that I'm working on. Good night.